My pleasure to call to order the regular council meeting of the Village of Cache Creek this December the 2nd, 2024. We have a couple of delegations, the first being Dawson Road Maintenance, Chris Rotloff, Operations Manager for Dawson Road Maintenance, to present regarding their winter maintenance program. It's all yours, buddy.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor Council. It's a pleasure to be here finally. We've been trying to get into this council for a while now, so we'll try to make it a regular affair going forward here. So just an update on our winter maintenance program. Ashcroft, we got a couple seats left to fill, but our complement is looking pretty good. Clinton, we're still 4 or 5 people short there, so we're still looking to fill a few seats there, but all of our equipment is up and running. We're ready to hit her hard. We have been out brining, I'm sure you guys have seen. So that's kind of what we do this time of year, the shoulder seasons we call them, because it really helps with that morning frost. Down in this area, actually, it works really well with the temperatures down here, that it'll actually get rid of those first 3 or 4 centimeters of snow. So it's actually been working really well down here. We've had great success with it down in this area and the Lillooet area. So we'll be continuing with that as well. So I do want to introduce Mohammed Hassani here. He's our new quality manager. You guys were used to David Rhodes, but he moved on. So he's filling some pretty big shoes right now. So I do have our cards here, so I'll just leave them with you guys. If you guys want to give us a phone call for any reason, just feel free. Just even if you just want to just have some questions you need answered. But is there anything that we can help you with? Any questions you guys have?
Any questions from council? Councillor Dubois.
It's not really, just a bit of a technical question. When you guys put the brine on the roads and it's damp like that, at what point does that freeze when you're driving on? Like a lot of times you'll see it on there and it's not quite sure.
So we typically like to put it down on a bare road, right? Bare and dry.
Yeah.
And it hopefully dries up on us, but it will start to, if it's at 23.3%, which it's supposed to be, the sodium content should be 23.3, it actually won't freeze. But what happens is when precipitation starts to fall, it immediately starts to dilute it. So then you're going to see it start to refreeze about -9.
Okay.
Yeah. But if the traffic keeps driving on it, it typically will stay moist. But it's when that traffic slows down or the temperatures really dip that you'll see it start to freeze up on us. We have used it during snowstorms with pretty good success. But again, like I said, it dilutes it right away. So once it's overwhelmed it on the highway, that initial application, once it's overwhelmed it, we basically just run with sand, and then once it stops snowing, we'll get some salt out there. So. But way better for the environment, right? Like we're using a lot less salt when we're out there brining, so it's a lot better cost-wise, a lot better for the environment. So.
Perfect. Any other questions for the delegation?
Well, I have a comment.
Councillor Anta.
I've called Dawson a few times over the last year, and I would just like to thank the folks at the other end, because it's been really successful in my opinion, and accessible and answered, and even if it's weird hours, there's somebody that's actually answering, and just a sense of confidence that, you know, even if there's an issue or something on the road or something, that there is accountability. So just pass that along.
I will do that, and we do have, we hired Amanda Morel. She's the superintendent down in this area now, so a few of you know her. So she's been a wonder down here. So it's been she's on the ball. She's got the crews snapping to attention when they need to be. So it's really good. But I will definitely pass that along. Thank you.
Yeah. I think Carmen is, at least in part, probably referring to the fact that she spent an hour on hold with TELUS earlier today. So she likes it if she phones somebody and gets an answer. Yeah.
I don't know if easy.
Yeah, those can be challenging for sure. Yeah, so anyway, I've left our cards here, so if you guys need to reach out for any reason, just feel free. I'm sure most of you already have my email from a couple of years ago, but yeah, feel free to refresh it and give me a call anytime you need.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for showing
Yeah,
up.
thanks for coming.
Have a good night.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
On to housing needs assessment. the housing needs assessment dude.
That I am. Thank you so much for having me this evening. It is a pleasure to speak to the village council here. So let me just get started up.
I'm just gonna make sure that it will let me let you share. Who can bypass? Who can? It's probably saying no right now because our security is very intense on this stuff. Who can present?
Fair enough.
Everyone. There, should let you share now.
Looks
So
familiar.
can you see my title screen?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. My name is Brent Goodall. I am Vice President of Urbanics Consultants. We've been working with the village and with the regional district to prepare housing needs assessments for about 20 different jurisdictions in the whole Thompson-Nicola. And so this will be a great chance to speak to you folks today about what we found in Cache Creek. Firstly, I'd just like to go over the methodology. So this is a change from previous housing needs assessments because the province has created a standardized methodology for use of every city, village, town, and electoral area in the province. It's based upon 6 factors, and these are extreme core housing need, i.e. the number of households spending more than 50% of their income on housing costs. Homelessness, based upon regional homelessness counts. Suppressed household formation, i.e. when we took the 2006 propensity of every cohort to head up a household, compared that to 2021, and use that as an estimate for how the increased cost of living has made it more difficult for people to set out on their own. Projected population growth. This is your standard BC stats projection for how many households they're going to be based upon demographics and migration estimates. Rental vacancy. So the largely based upon provincial figures or local figures were available to estimate an additional buffer for dealing with low rental vacancy rates. And then lastly, the demand factor, which is a ratio added to every city's housing needs assessment by the province through an opaque formula that I wish I knew more about. And so this is drawing from census data, from CMHC data, from BC Stats, and other data sources that they've been made available, but that is our primary source of information. So, in the Thompson-Nicola, we conducted a stakeholder survey as well as an online community survey. So we spoke to a great many stakeholders, people in the industry, people in social services, people involved in local government, to get their perspective and to fill out what we were hearing, provide background information, help inform the study. We also conducted an online community survey, which had 523 completed responses. 7% of these were from Cache Creek, so 35 responses, which is not a statistically robust sample, but is, however, a useful exercise. This was not intended to be a scientific survey of opinion, merely a way for people to participate in the process and let us know things that we wouldn't have otherwise known. So I would like to speak to some of the limitations that we have involved in this study. Firstly, it comes down to provincial methodology. The provincial methodology is, well, I think very well intentioned, and a lot of thought went into it. It does have some issues. For one, if the province says you need to build 50 homes, that doesn't mean that Joe, the home builder, can go out and build and sell 50 homes and make money. It's not an economically grounded study of housing needs. With respect to certain issues, it does have a bit of a circular input problem. In many respects, your BC Stats population projections are not the best tool for forward planning because they encode a lot of past choices that are used to determine your expected migration rates into future forward planning. So it's a bit of a circular issue there. Lastly, a big part of this for municipalities in BC is in many cases the demand factor, which is poorly documented. I have not really been able to get a great explanation from people in the province as to what it is. But it is just a ratio that was generated by the province. You look it up in a spreadsheet for every municipality in British Columbia. and this just adds a buffer value to every municipality's housing needs assessment. Lastly, I'd like to address just the fact that the way housing markets work. It's a regional phenomenon. Housing, one small community has a limited ability to impact the housing outcomes of the region. But working as a region, as a happy to see that Cache Creek and your partners, TNRD, are doing, you can impact things. So it's just a perspective that I want to draw attention to there. Now, with respect to population projections, the projection does not find that there's going to be an especially large amount of growth in Cache Creek, fairly level population over the future, with an increasing proportion of senior residents, which does create substantial housing challenges. The number of under 15 is expected to decline by 35%, while the working age population is expected to decline by about 19%. This is a very strong degree of population aging seen in Cache Creek in the future, which will have many implications for what kind of housing people need. So moving on, here is our core housing needs projections findings. Using the provincial methodology, we found that Cache Creek needs 223 units over 20 years, or 80 units over 5 years. This is 2021 to 2026 and 2021 to 2041 to anchor it to available census data. The driver here is the anticipated population growth, which, despite not being an especially large variable, the number of households is expected to grow up. This is go up. This is in part due to the very strong long-term trend towards smaller household sizes, which causes housing needs in excess of the number of people the change in number of people. So, yeah, that amounts to about 15% housing growth over 5 years and 43% housing growth over 20 years using the provincial methodology. I would like to speak to some of the things that we did hear from members of the community. There is a certain amount of concern we've heard both in Cache Creek and similar concerns we've elsewhere, that there is a lack of affordable options, that family housing is not available, that people in the community in greater straits have limited availability and help to be able to accomplish things. People are unsatisfied with the levels of rents, even in Cache Creek and small communities, which didn't used to be nearly so much the case. And a general dissatisfaction in a lot of cases with outcomes that has taken place over here. So, people would like access to more housing at lower costs, which is, definitely what we've heard here, and along with several other comments that are available in the wider report analysis. So, just in conclusion, we would like to draw attention to some key areas of local need, support for expanding non-market and supportive housing options, especially in communities such as Cache Creek. The actual market availability can be quite tight and limited economic viability, and so it's important that non-market options are able to move through the development process. Working to expand the supply of rental housing, drawing attention to the quite strong growth of the senior citizen population, which has implications for form and scale and size and location of housing, as well as enhancing housing diversity so that there's more options beyond the traditional sort of four square walls that people in North America are traditionally associated with. So thank you so much for letting me speak to you this evening, and I am happy to take any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions? Is it Rick?
Brendan.
Brendan, okay. Are there any questions for Brendan?
I have a couple, but it might be in the document. Are there references for your population projections?
So the population projections are drawn from the BC Stats population projection. They are using the PLE model that's been used by the province with some recent additions, I believe, in 2020 to harmonize it with StatsCan population estimation methods. So it's a cohort replacement model based upon largely the propensity of existing people by age and gender to mortality and fertility rates, and then there's an adjustment applied for migration, in and out migration, based mostly on past patterns. And so that's how the province calculates the municipal population estimates. It's similar to what's used for school districts, regional districts, and other provincial sub-areas.
Good.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm just wondering, I see the total new units that we're anticipated to need in 5 years is 80. And that to me represents 16 new units per year. Who's gonna build those? I haven't seen 16 units built in Cache Creek,
In total.
yeah, in several years.
That is, I share your concerns. As I mentioned, it's not an economic model of housing viability. It implies that no person who's actually able to make anything pencil is going to do anything. It commits no funding for the identified housing needs that are non-market, such as extreme poor housing and homelessness. So I take no responsibility for what the province has told me to tell you. But
All good.
We understand.
Thank you. Councillor Dubois.
I'm just wondering, looking at the data, I appreciate that it's probably not statistically relevant given a lot of the information, but in regards to other communities that you're looking at, are you seeing similar trends, or what are you specifically noting about Cache Creek that is significantly different than the other communities you're looking at?
And I'm happy to answer that question. I've done a great many housing needs assessments, both in this cycle and in previous rounds of them. The level of the growth of the senior citizen population in Cache Creek is quite exceptional in my experience. Looking through the projections there, that this is it's a very common that in almost every community is aging across the developed world. But this is a very particularly strong level of aging that is projected in Cache Creek. Most communities I've looked at have somewhat higher population growth rates that balance out sort of the aging of the existing population, and so that would be sort of the big differences I see here versus other British Columbia communities that we've examined.
Any other questions? Councillor Dubois.
Can you comment on the requirement for rental housing in Cache Creek compared to other communities where there's more of a home ownership requirement, and where the balance is? When I look at it, I'm not quite sure that I believe some of the numbers. I think it identified 40 rental accommodations or 40 apartments in Cache Creek, which I'm not quite sure that I would necessarily agree with. Are you able to comment on that at all?
Yeah, so the some of the figures in here is if we're talking about the rental vacancy rate adjustment, some of that is based upon provincial rates, because the CMHC, due to ongoing budgetary contractions, collects less and less data on fewer and fewer communities every year, and so we don't have quite the specific data that we might have in the past. That would be my main comment on the rental values there. It's rental is something that in many communities is just penciled better than it used to, especially just the way the condominium and homeownership markets have become a lot more difficult for people to access in the last 10 years, and compared to the preferential financing available for rental. I think it's, projecting forward rental housing needs is not necessarily it's not the last word in numbers. These things shift year to year, much faster than policy adapts in my experience. So,
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've heard certainly is that when people come to the community, they have great difficulty in finding a place to rent. And so, I think the need is right up there when you're having people that come to the community and can't find a place to rent.
I think for myself, the other one that I really noticed was the age of the rental properties. I think a lot of them were constructed in the 1970s, so they're very much aged out. I think there's some condition issues with those, so I think that really highlights as well some of the issues with the rental properties.
Any other questions
Build
for,
an apartment block in seniors housing and you'd have a lot of
Lots of-
inventory. I'm one of
Maybe.
those, I'm a senior, single person living in a home that would very gladly move into something smaller if I could. And that would open up affordable housing
Yeah.
for young families and people that want to come into the community. So
Yeah.
I think this is just ammunition with our BC housing, quest with the property that they own.
any other questions for Brendan? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you speaking to the housing needs assessment, and look forward to seeing you again in the not too distant future.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You betcha. On to the minutes of the November 18th council meeting. Could I have a motion to adopt as circulated?
So moved?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from the delegations? Seeing none. Business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. Committee reports. Economic Development. Councillor Dubois.
Okay. My computer just crashed on me, sorry.
That's why I print the agenda. I
Um,
just print the-
we have a motion that council authorize administration to sign the contract for the operation of the Visitor Information Center with the Desert Mesa Club as presented.
Any discussion? Councillor Ranta.
I think it's very helpful to have this organization doing the info center. I think they're doing a great job. There's steady growth and improvement, and just thank you. I think we should, after it's finished, also thank them for the good work they do for the town. So.
Thank you. On the motion, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. In reading through the report, I note on page 10, there's a mention of neon sign restoration, refurbish the iconic sign above the information center entrance. And I noticed that it's, the neon around it is fine, but the fluorescent tubes are pretty well gone. And I think that was one of the things that I mentioned when I got elected a couple of years ago, is the need to replace the fluorescent tubes or whatever it is, and I had a response that we were trying to put in LEDs or something like that. Most recently, it sounded to me like Kat had almost given up on the idea of the LEDs and is now thinking we should find some fluorescent tubes to replace the existing fluorescent tubes with. And I'm wondering what the best way to ensure that staff is focused on achieving that is. There's the three-sided sign at the center of town and the one on the community hall. And I would move that staff proceed in a timely fashion with the refurbishment of those signs.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion?
It's one of the things that was removed as part of the budget discussion that last year. Cat's been continuously seeking grant funding for it, but because of its location, it can't be grant funded because we don't own the property. We just have use of the property for the three-phase sign.
Yeah.
The one on the community hall, the hope was if we replaced the three-phase sign, we could get a fourth face and use that one on the community hall to replace the one there. Because the one on the community hall is full neon and it's very expensive to fix. So if we wanted to do that, it would probably be cheaper to replace than to fix, like replace it with LED. But we'd be looking at in the tens of thousands of dollars to do that.
Well, I'm sure fluorescent tubes don't cost tens of thousands.
No, but like for the three-phase sign, we could do the fluorescent tube, but for the one on the community hall, it doesn't have, I think it might have a couple fluorescent tubes.
I think so.
All the neon is failing on it as well, with the exception of the outside itself.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion?
So that's my understanding that it's a budget issue.
Yes, it was not budgeted for in this, budget term, yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Defeated.
It's supposed to bring it up at budget
Yes.
discussion.
Well, you know, I guess my frustration is having talked about it 2 years ago with the administrator and having seen nothing happen in 2 years.
But if we don't give him a budget to be able to do it, then his hands are tied.
Replacing light bulbs is a maintenance issue, not a budgetary issue. It's a maintenance issue.
With all due respect, when those light bulbs are gonna cost tens of thousands of dollars, I think it goes beyond its standard maintenance issue. Given that we have significant issues with our water system failing, as we're gonna see later on in the report, I think there's other priorities rather than some lighting at this time.
Thank you. I don't agree with you, but that's okay. Thank you anyway.
Fair enough.
Anything else under economic development? Seeing none, budget administrative services. We have the council meeting schedule for 2025. I would move that we adopt the schedule as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor Ranta?
Well, just in consideration of the schedule, I know that it would be probably very difficult, if not impossible, to change the day of the meeting, because it seems difficult when we have a long weekend that many of the meetings get bumped to Tuesday. And in an ideal world, I think avoiding that juggle would be a good thing, just because it's clear to the public if it would be on a day where it wouldn't get bumped. The other thing, however, I'm not really advocating that we choose a new day here at this kind of last minute. But in the future, I think it might be something to consider. The other thing is that, except for 4 times a year, staff are waiting from 4:30 until 6 o'clock for the meeting. And it might be more kind of efficient for them if we were maybe to consider changing the meeting to 5:30, for instance. Which would mean that the committee of the whole days would have a shorter opportunity for committee of the whole, but most of the committee of the whole meetings that we've had haven't gone for an hour and a half. So that would mean that the staff are only here between like 4:30 and 5:30 waiting for the meeting rather than 4:30 and 6. So I would propose that we change the regular 6 o'clock time to 5:30. And I will move that.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion?
Part of the
Councillor
reason we
Peters.
went from 7 to 6 was to shorten that time, so, yeah, I'm sure staff would not be unhappy with that change, or,
That's not me saying I'd be unhappy, I'd
Yeah.
be very happy with that,
Yeah.
but there is a motion on the table. Already a motion for.
It's an amendment.
Oh, okay.
On the amendment then, any discussion?
The only problem I have with it is that I'm still working,
At 5:30?
but I do
The
work till
commute.
5 sometimes.
Yeah.
So it will push me to be here at 5:30.
Councillor DeVon?
I think that, I'd like to respect Councilor Hebert's time, and I appreciate that maybe for this particular schedule, whatever we decide, but it's something to be aware of that while I appreciate staff's time and them taking the time to be here, if we want to be able to include people from a wide variety of backgrounds that are to be part of council, moving it up could be restrictive, so.
Thank you. On the amendment,
And the other comment would be, some of your public that may attend to come in for something may also work till 5, 5:30, 6 o'clock. So them getting here to speak on whatever they need to speak about may be interfered with
Yeah.
as well.
Councillor Ranta?
Well, maybe what we should do is have some kind of public communication about making the change in the future for next year to see in advance whether or not this would be a good change or not for the public. We we know obviously from the last speaker, that there's a lot of seniors in the community and usually they prefer earlier rather than later, so it might be a delicate balance that we wanna find, but I just was curious if there was an appetite for a slight change, just because there does seem to be a little bit of efficiency to at least be looked at, and so I would hope that maybe next year we can do a little bit of advance consultation to find out if this, a change like that would impact the public very, very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? Administrator Co-Chair.
If, even if there's discussion, like say council chooses to keep it at 6 p.m. for the foreseeable future, you're able to change the schedule at any time with a resolution of council. So it can be changed, say in June if you wish to make a change. So it's council's prerogative, whatever you wish to do.
Any further discussion on the amendment? On the amendment then, all those in favor? Opposed? Are you in favor?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
That's good.
how was the vote? Sorry, one was in favor and,
four opposed looks like.
so who was in favor?
I would have voted for it if I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna vote.
And you moved it and you didn't even vote for it.
Well, I listened to the discussion.
Oh yeah, good for you. That's the thing to do. On the motion then, which wasn't amended, the council meeting schedule, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Are you opposed?
No.
Oh, geez. Okay, carried unanimously. Bylaws and policy review, Councillor Ranta.
Okay, so I'll move the motion, that council give final consideration to and adopt bylaw number 2-018, 2024, the 2025 utility rates as presented.
Second?
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried? With only one opposed. Public Works, Councillor Diebert.
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Healthcare and Protective Services, Councillor Ranta.
Nothing.
Emergency Management, Councillor Peters.
Nothing at this time?
Parks and Recreation, Councillor Ranta.
Okay, so I, requested that we have a discussion or an update on the possibility of, having activities and that it be on the agenda. And I think we had some discussion about movie nights in the past and I'm just curious because there was some discussion about another group possibly doing it, so.
Yeah, and the update that I've received is that other groups may be interested, but they wouldn't be interested until at the earliest they would be bringing it forward to council in January, and then that wouldn't see them doing it until end of January, February, which is kind of the end of the season. So if council wanted to do something with that information, we can look at trying to organize something or some sort of event in the meantime through the season, depending on the desire for how many times you want to see it.
Well, the season runs year round.
Yes.
In my opinion. And, you know, we used to have basketball and movies and stuff at the community hall when we had what was called an activities program. And it sounds like we're not headed in the direction of hiring an activities programmer. It sounds like there's a volunteer group that is considering initiating activities in the village of Cache Creek, which would be great. And, you know, I hope that it can be achieved in a timely fashion.
For clarity, I think that they only want to do movies,
Oh, only
not
movies?
other things. So
Yeah.
there's still a role for an activities coordinator.
Okay,
For sure.
good.
Well, I would move that the council direct staff to make some, assessments of the possibility for trying to get, something organized for the winter months this year. And report back to council.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? Councillor Peters.
As an active volunteer in the community, I think that we would struggle to find a volunteer group that would be willing to take that over, just because everybody is stretched so thin already. And so I would suggest that we make this part of our budget discussions as well, as so that it could be a paid position.
Yeah,
rather than a volunteer
I agree.
generated.
It certainly was a position previously, and I think it was in the neighborhood of 10,000 a year or something like that. Councillor Liebert.
Is there grants to address something like that?
They're few and far between, and they're quite heavily subscribed. I know that some of the funding, sometimes in the past, like the position that was here previously, some years grant funding was able to achieve, and some years it wasn't. Years that it was, I think the program was a little bit more flushed out, but it wasn't all the time. We've been keeping an eye out for those, but there hasn't really been much lately.
How much do they grant?
It's usually between like 5,000 and 15,000 is kind of the number that I've seen. The other thing is consideration during the summer months for using a Canada Summer Jobs student for that. So it would be, we would cover 50% of the cost, and so then a student would run different activities and that sort of thing throughout the summer months, which is an option. We were planning to apply for some summer job students anyway, and so that could be one of the things that we apply for specifically, not just a seasonal person to help public works, but somebody that is very specifically, their job is to provide activities and be present in that facility. So.
Thank you. Councillor Ranta.
I think the village has been through a really difficult time with the flood recovery and, just the many different, responsibilities connected with that, and, it still isn't finished. So, I'm not intending to kind of overburden staff with something that's kind of extra. So hopefully, like, what I would like to see is I think, if I remember correctly, we did have money in the budget for activities, so we do have a fund that would support a minimal kind of program. And just what the capacity for the village is to create a minimal thing or one or two things, just so that we have initiated something this year, rather than waiting again for next fall, if it's a possibility, and that's what the intention of the motion is, to look at the possibility of.
Thank you. Any further discussion? You had a motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to Landfill Advisory Committee. I would move that we receive and file the post-closure care cost statement for October 31st, 2024. Any discussion? Councillor Dubois.
I noticed in reviewing it that there seems to be some fairly significant discrepancies, particularly in regards to staffing, compared to the different categories, and I'm wondering if it would be possible to get some clarification from the operator of the landfill as to why that is happening and what the reasons are.
You're meaning on which part of the staffing? Just in this labor column itself?
Yeah, if you look, for example, water treatment parts and services under labor, it's 57,000 is the budgeted, and the actual is 78. And then also water treatment ops, actual is 184,000 compared to 155.
Mm-hmm. See what the differences are?
Yeah. It's just, I'm not sure where water treatment compared to some of the other activities that are for the benefit of the operator are, and my concern is that, is there somehow overlap happening there?
The second thing with that is this is only till October 31st
Yeah.
as well, so there's still another quarter on top of this.
I would assume labor would be relatively consistent across, unless there's something in there that I'm not aware of. And this highlights some of the other challenges that we've had. This is very limited information. It doesn't give us a lot of information as well as what's going on, so I find it not very helpful to understand.
Thank you. Anything else under the landfill care cost statement? Seeing none, then on to TNRD and intergovernmental liaison. Yes.
There's a motion on the table to accept.
Oh, to accept this post-closure care, and yes, of course there is. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to TNRD and intergovernmental liaison. The UBCM convention. It used to be when I first got elected that 1 or 2 council members would attend UBCM, and ultimately what happened was we passed a resolution that all council members who were able to attend could attend, and that's still my opinion now, that any council members who wish to attend the UBCM convention should be able to attend. And I'm happy to hear any perspectives that council may have. Councillor Dubois.
I think it is a very costly undertaking. I know many of the other councils around the province don't actually look at sending the whole council. I believe the budget number was in the order of $15,000 for this year to send council to the convention. Given some of the other budget constraints, I just wonder how much value there is. But at the same time, I would suggest if there's people that aren't able to attend and that allows other people to attend, then I'm okay with that. But I am concerned about the cost.
I think some of the concerns, and probably the reason this was brought forward, is to get to the island has become so ridiculously expensive that it would be probably much higher than normal for us to attend. I know that in discussion at the last UBCM convention, really the dinners that we paid for and the lunches that we paid for, I don't get a lot of value out of those. I get the value out of the networking at other things. So, you know, I don't feel that council needs to attend all of the dinners that or lunches that we have to pay for. But there's ways that we could cut costs with the conventions. But I normally would like to attend, but I really don't know that I would put my name forward for this one in Victoria just because of the costs involved with one.
Thank you. Councillor Ranta.
Well, like usual, I'm a big advocate for the advocacy piece that that having a limited or no members of our council utilize the opportunity to speak to ministers in the way that you can at UBCM, especially when we're in recovery, especially when we've got joint projects possibly happening in the future. We've got a change of government, we've got new ministers. I think it's a super important year to go to UBCM. I think that when we go to UBCM, we need to be mindful of why we're there and really make opportunities valuable. Same with you. I think the dinnery things are sometimes really beneficial. I remember sitting at the table with like our new MLA and you know, mayors from other communities around us and building those relationships. It doesn't really happen just on Zoom and just rubbing shoulders down the hallway. I think that sometimes the dinners are really valuable as well. Sometimes they're not as valuable. So I can kind of see your point. It's not about the dinner. It's like I don't look at these things saying, oh, it's a great vacation and, you know, it's going to be really fun. It's actually grueling hard work if you do it right. And there's so much value in having the face-to-face relationships built with, like, let's say with the minister, when we were all there the first year when we just had the disaster. That was a really important meeting. We built a relationship with Minister Ma that I think helped our town in the future, and it's hard to say to put a monetary value on how much that help really was, but considering the change in government and what we have at stake, I think it's really important that we at least have a minimum of 2 council members and 1 staff member go to UBCM just for the sake of those important meetings. And thinking of our town, like our high level of need, I just worry if we don't participate in UBCM, because getting a minister's attention is increased so much by those relationships. So that's my perspective of those expensive trips, and maybe the whole council doesn't have to go every year. And I know some people don't have the, because of work schedules or vacation schedules, maybe can't go, but I would not like to see a day when we don't participate and when we don't value it.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the UBCM convention, Administrator Couture?
The main thing that we wanted to ask council is if people are interested in attending, how many hotels we need, how many hotels we need to book, and also just for council information, we did a little bit of investigation into the cost, because like you said, Island it's a little different than everywhere else in the province. So we investigated the cost of driving versus flight, and if a person is, it costs the same for one person to fly or drive, once you factor in ferry, travel, all that sort of stuff. Or if 2 people are together, it's a far better rate, but it's about the same rate for one person to fly or drive. And that can be booked anytime. Like, that's not a, hey, we need to figure out your flights today, that sort of thing. But just for council thinking in their head, hey, what do I want to do next year? We're hoping to book some rooms. The rooms at the convention hotel were very expensive, so I'm definitely opting for some other places that are within a block, just because they were hundreds of dollars more per night, because and it's expensive. Cool. So,
Councillor Dubois.
Would it be possible to just get a quick show of hands of any councillors that know for sure they're not going to be able to attend, not committing to attending, but if you know from a schedule point of view that you can conflict or anything like that, who's potentially not going to be going? That might be someplace to start, then we can at least start to take a look at that.
I can, because we would probably use a booking site instead of the blocks, because with the blocks, they have a lot of weird contingencies about when you can and cannot cancel and that sort of thing. So we'd probably use a third-party booking website that lets you cancel your reservation if we need to. So I could reserve 4 hotel rooms, and then if we only end up needing 1, I can cancel 3. So if I have a general idea on what we'd be looking at, then I can go from there.
Are you planning to stay at my room, Carmen?
I can't predict.
Yeah, that's almost a year away, John.
Story of my life.
When do you need an answer by?
Within the next couple of weeks. We probably want them, because other people will probably be doing the same sort of thing. I'm fine. I don't need a hotel room there. I'm lucky.
Or you can stay at Lawrence.
Yeah. So.
How's that for a minister meeting? Or,
Good.
or not minister, I guess, but.
Okay, anything else on the UBCM convention attendance? Seeing none, on to joint paratransit committee minutes. I would move that we send a letter to BC Transit related to their regionalization initiative, suggesting that our system, our paratransit system, be excluded from regionalization, and that's the motion.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Councillor Peters, then Dubois.
At our, the transit meeting, there was a considerable amount of discussion on this. And, the concern is that if we are regionalized and lumped in, that our service will come out of Kamloops and we will lose that personal, connection that our drivers that are in our areas have with the residents. And that it could affect our ridership. Also, if there's a shortage, my concern was, as always, that rural BC is always get stumped on, and that if there is a shortage of drivers, that it'll be systems like ours that will be last on the list to have a driver if there's a shortage at any given time. I was assured that wouldn't be an issue, but I'm sorry, I've been down that road before, and I'm skeptical. So I think this is an extremely important letter, and the more small communities that can do this lobbying, I think the better for all of us.
Thank you. Councillor Dubois.
I'm just thinking from a logistics point of view, I'm assuming that staff would write the letter and then send it, bring it to council for approval before it goes out.
They can do that if you so desire. Thank you. On the motion then, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to Joint Paratransit Committee meeting report. I would move that we receive and file a report from Councillor Peters, which we all appreciate. Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Just one of the most exciting things for me was the presentation by Transit about the disaster response unit that they're forming. Unfortunately, it will be a couple of years until it reaches us, but I think if we, knowing that there is a centralized thing, that if we did have that was one of the biggest challenges was evacuations in 2023 and finding transportation for the people that needed to be transported. And so having a centralized thing makes me, as the logistics chief, extremely happy.
A single number you phone.
A single number,
This is a number you call if you need a bus to show up somewhere.
Yeah.
And they said that there's a possibility, even though the system won't be fully developed and out into our areas yet, but they said still call and they might be able to help.
Yeah.
So.
Good, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Dubois?
I see that some of the discussion centered on a stop at the Cache Creek Sage and Sands Trailer Park, which I think is really important. The other thing that I was wondering is, was there any discussion or would there be the possibility to have a stop at the top of Stage Road where they're currently doing the bus stop for the kids? If we could somehow double duty that, I think that would be really.
We could certainly bring it forward. The stop at Sage and Sands made had very little impact on the
Schedule.
timing and their schedule. You would know about that.
Yeah.
The scheduled timing going up the hill might be a little bit different. There is also the opportunity, and it's in the pamphlets that we have here, that you can ask for door-to-door service. It is available, so that if someone had some issues with mobility or being able to get to one of the stops, that is an option as well. It's not it's well used in Ashcroft. It's not used. It's only used by one or two people here. So
They'll go out of their way to factor you into the route.
which if we went with regional would not happen.
Right, yeah. Any further discussion on the motion then? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to Cache Creek Community Fund. Councillor Dubois.
Yes, I'd like to move the council receive and file the letter from the BC Interior Community Foundation.
Discussion? Councillor Ranta.
I just found that going from 1% admin cost to 1.75% seemed like almost 100%. Well, it's a 75% increase. In 1 year, it seems extremely high to make that such a large change in 1 year. And it kind of concerns me because the intention of the fund is to minimize the admin cost and see as much dollars given back to the communities as possible. I'm pretty sure it's in there. So I'm just concerned about that, because if that's a growing trend, I just think it's a bit of a steep jump in 1 year. I could see, I could see a 20%, maybe 25% an increase. But, to have almost double in 1 year, and then have them say that they're still in the mid-range for foundations, it either we were really, really low, or like it's hard to take, really. It really is, because those are taxpayer dollars in some cases, donor dollars in other cases, and I know when Cache Creek got into it, the village had quite a lot of money put into the fund from our sources, and it's hard to take that steep of an increase, and it really makes me worry about the future of the fund, to be quite honest. So.
Thank you. Councillor Dubois.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I haven't seen that there's been any increases to what they've been charging for years, quite significant years. So I appreciate that it is a fairly large jump, and I would have preferred that they would have done more of an incremental approach. But I get the sense that they were trying to hold the line, and they've gotten to the point where they couldn't hold the line anymore, so they had to make the discussion. But I agree, it's challenging to see that large of a jump. But fundamentally, the funding is coming actually from revenue that the fund generates, so it's not really directly. It's not. Yeah, it's about that side. So I'm less inclined, and I think there's huge value in what they do as a society and as a foundation in terms of managing that money, looking after the granting and everything like that. So I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
And then we have a motion to make a donation to the Guns.
I have no direct benefit from this, but I am on the organizing committee.
I saw your name there.
Yeah.
I don't.
There's no direct benefit to me, so there's no fiduciary.
Yes, you don't need to leave if you don't want it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that council make a donation to the Guns and Hoses event, equivalent to the donation we made last year.
Second.
We didn't make.
We didn't make
donation
one last year.
Well, that's perfect. I'll support that.
It was $100 the year before, though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I remembered.
I don't know.
Okay, so, pardon me, I'd like to restate the motion. I'd like to make a motion that council make a donation of $100 to the Guns and Hoses event.
Second.
Discussion.
It's a great event, and it's so well attended by all of the area. I'm a little afraid of its future though, because Constable Buckland was the driving force behind it, and he is now in merit.
And we just sold this.
He's officially in merit now, so.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to staff reports, quarterly newsletter update. I would move that we receive and file the report.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor Ranta?
Thank you very much for the report. It looks really good. I'm really excited to, see this occur. And a lot of thought has been put into, distributing it with cost effectiveness in mind. I know that not everyone in town gets a utility bill, and so there's a tiny few people that don't have a lot of technology in their lives. So finding a way of reaching them without doing a mail drop would be the number one thing, so that's all.
Another thing, I thought about it after and I couldn't remember if I put it in there or not. So another method that we considered is putting up information showing, hey, we're doing this, let us know, and we can mail you one direct.
Oh, that's a good idea.
this way, if there's somebody that's in kind of those fringe areas, they don't have technology and they need those support, like there'd be 5 or 10 of them in the community, right? So we can just mail them at the same time we do the utility bills.
That sounds fun.
Right? Like
It's a good plan.
Oh, you think they're gonna settle the strike one of these days?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing that
Yeah, that's right.
hinges on all this.
Thank you. On the motion then, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Review of water system issues. There's a report on the agenda, and I move that we receive and file the report.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Pigeon control in the coverall. I would move the recommendation.
Second?
Discussion? Eh?
There's 2 recommendations.
Or so there
It's
one
an and.
recommendation.
Oh, sorry,
It's
it's
an
an
and.
and. Okay, my apologies, sorry.
No problem. Any discussion? Councillor Devert?
With it becoming winter, is this gonna work?
I don't know. We'll
Okay,
see.
fair enough.
We're gonna try.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if you're using water to wash it.
Yeah, because it's a special chemical, and I think it has a lower freezing point. I think it's a little lower. For a certain dilution, yeah. And if it can't be diluted too much, we would just target some specific areas, because it is fairly expensive. It comes in a 5 gallon, 5 gallons, like a full bucket size. Yeah, and that pail is $450. So, but it does get diluted.
That's great.
Yeah, and it also neutralizes it, like it balances the pH, which is a really big thing. So it's not damaging the concrete. So, yeah, we wanted to give it a try and see,
Yeah.
and then hopefully we get the grants.
Yes.
Thank
We'll know
you.
in the next couple months. So.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item D, pedestrian crossing. I would move that we receive and file the report.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to information correspondence. I would move that we receive and file the information correspondence from Interior Health.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Is there any new business? Administrator Co-Chair.
Just one update, as likely everyone in the community has seen, because it impacts garbage service. Our garbage truck is not performing as it should right now. It has some pretty substantial issues. We thought that it was going to be an inexpensive fix, because there was a component, a $60 component, that was very obviously had failed. It was a solenoid, and literally one of the connections on it was sheared right off. And so we all assumed that that would be the fix. We had it in, they ordered the part was delayed because of the supplier. We got the part Friday, they installed it Friday afternoon, didn't solve it. They attempted to fix it and try and sort out the issue, but it's an issue in the PTO. So currently it's sitting at the Freightliner warehouse now. They're gonna be looking at it tomorrow morning, and then letting me know sometime tomorrow what's happening.
Good, thank you. Councillor Dubois.
Just in regards to that, is it the truck body that has the failure, or is it the garbage body?
So that's a good question, because it's the PTO specifically, and so it's when we talk about
What's a PTO?
power takeoff, yeah. So with that, like it could be one or the other. Specifically with this truck, it was installed by Rollins, like the aftermarket supplier. So we talked with Freightliner about that and said, hey, this is the case, because Rollins is in Chilliwack, that leads to a whole nother lead time. Sometimes they can get a tech out, but it's extremely expensive. So we we asked Freightliner, even though this isn't your part, do you think you can fix it? And they said, very likely we can, because we dealt with a lot of different ones. So we thought we would do that. And if that doesn't work, then somebody's going to carpool to Kamloops and we're going to take it down to Chilliwack, I guess. I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when it comes. But I'm hopeful.
Councillor Liebert?
Was it, what's life expectancy left on that truck?
So that truck from the factory, it's their recommendation, like Rollins' recommendation is 12 years from purchase. That puts it at 2029. It would, by their recommendation, be kind of out of service. It's a bit of a lemon, and there was definitely some maintenance issues with it over the years. It's been better in the past couple of years. We've been on top of maintenance pretty good, and it hasn't had it feels like it has a lot of issues, but it really doesn't for a machine that operates as much as it does. But it is definitely showing its age, and I think that it's aging prematurely. I don't think that we're going to get to 2029. I feel like it'll be 2027 that we would need a new piece of equipment, personally.
Thank you. Any? Councillor Dubois?
I'm assuming there's no warranty left or anything like that on the, I can't believe that there isn't somebody qualified to do some hydraulics in Kamloops, given the number of the stuff that's out there that would be able to look after something like that, rather than having to go all the way to Chilliwack to look after it. I would.
That's my feel as well.
I wonder if it would be worthwhile to reach out to the city of Kamloops, find out what they use for their fleets.
They might have somebody in-house. You know. Hey, can you?
Because I know their bodies are from Rollins.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Peters?
If, once you have the news tomorrow as to timing, perhaps a buoyant alert might be a good thing, because I don't put my garbage out every day, and I put it out last week not knowing that they were hand bombing it, and I didn't need to put it out. So, like, if people knew that we were having these issues and we asked them to not put their garbage cans out unless they were full, that we might save the staff some time and ickiness.
Yeah, because there have definitely been some residents that have been asked, like they called the office and saying, do you think that you're going to be doing this tomorrow? Like today we received a few of those calls. And even there was some commercial customers that were calling this morning saying, hey, we know the truck isn't working, don't pick up here. So they were good about it, which is nice when the big bear-proof metal containers, they don't have to grab a bag. They're very thankful.
They're awful. We have one husky, and if you have to go in for any reason.
No, very good.
Thank you. Any other new business? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public?
No, thank you.
Are there any questions from the press?
No.
We have need of a closed session pursuant to section 90.1 and 2 of the community charter. Could I have a motion to that effect?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?